Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right. Well, anyways, let's get started today. And I've got Carter Olson with us today. And Carter is the administrator at the Nickel Home in Glasgow, Kansas. Carter, if you'll just introduce yourself a little bit and give us a little background and context of where you came from and what you're doing.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Jake. Glad to be here. I've been at the nursing home for 2.5 years. Before that, I actually worked in college sports for about 8 years. Grew up in Kansas City, but had family ties to the Glasgow area. My great grandma was raised here. Grandpa grew up here. He died in the 70s, but we always still came back to family reunions and such. And so, something about when you're leaving the city and you find small town charm. I moved to Wamego my senior year of high school, so I kind of downsized and really appreciated the downsizing. You get a different perspective about it. And then, working at K-State for a while, you get the appreciation of the rural atmosphere and the culture. And, I think the biggest thing that made it easy to keep doing my job here is just at how grateful and gracious people are to you out in this area. There's so many people who haven't had, the nicest of things or the best of care, or haven't been necessarily prioritized by people who are almost starved for a little bit of attention and good news at times. And, especially with the pandemic, we've been trying a lot of different things here to stay active. You and I have talked about some of the different facility renovations. I think I checked in last week and we just hit the 250,000 mark. And so for us, that's a huge thing in a 60-year-old business and town of under 500 people. It's important to us to add that and then some for the community. So
you were in sports administration, or?
Yeah, I interned in a marketing office there in athletics for my first 4 years. Then I was a grad student for 2 years in that office, and then I ran some of the ticket office day-to-day stuff for 2 years after that. Got brought out here on a consulting opportunity, and it turned into the administrator position just after the first couple visits. And for me, I think it's kind of getting over it's not the job anybody would idealize.
Right.
And not many people would consider the impact it would have on a community. But, I think I continue to find ways that allow us to be involved in more. I briefly touched on it, but we're opening up the town's clinic after 6 years. And so for us, that's a huge bonus in town, having 2 doctors full-time starting in July at a Clay Center. And we're excited to have that resource back for families. We don't see too many limits on where we can go, especially just because I've got a wonderful board of directors. They've been very, very supportive the whole time I've been here. My department heads, they're rocks. You worked with Bridget Colby, you got to know Rachel and Haley and some of our others, and the people who really make it go. And thankfully they do their job so well that it allows me to be able to find new ways for all of us to grow. So
what was the deciding factor when you came out and visited Glasgow? What was the deciding factor to transition you from athletic administration to healthcare administration?
Sure. I think there was some obvious transition benefits that I think I saw where, I'm not going to lie, we maybe weren't the best organized building when I first stepped in. And so, I think something I've always looked for is just opportunities to grow, not just personally, but professionally. And, I think the more you grow, the more others around you can grow. And, for me coming out here, I saw a lot of opportunity for people who, like I said, just needed a little bit of leadership at the top. And these were people who cared clearly about the residents. They cared about their jobs. They cared about the community. They just needed someone who had the extra to go with them and to do these projects and to show them that it's okay to take a risk and all that.
Very cool. Have you always had that mindset? Like you just mentioned something that really really stood out for me. You looked for an opportunity to grow. Have you always had that mindset?
I'd say probably, my dad and my mom were very different. So my dad's a financial background, was financial consulting and insurance game. And then my mom did more, she taught creative art for 25, 30 years. So, for me, both of them were very hands-on with me and my little brother, both, but trying to push us to want more and to do more and think why not as opposed to why, and a lot of times that's exactly what we do with our ideas here is when somebody presents something to the table, we say, why not? We had last year in the middle of the summer, or 2 years ago now in the middle of the summer, pre-pandemic, but we took 5-6 residents to the pool, and it was about 1:30 by the time we got to the pool, and we didn't make the decision we were even going till 11:30 that day, and so for us, it's just spur of the moment sometimes, and why not? And why can't it be us? Why can't we be the best at something? Why can't we want more? And that's just what I try to trickle down into my staff.
Man, that's awesome. I was trying to rack my brain. What made you so different so here's how you and I met, just for a little context and background there. I'm one of those guys who was frustrated with COVID, not playing a lot of shows. And when we were playing shows, we were playing in real small venues where the risk of COVID was going through the roof. And it was frustrating to me. And so I was like, well, hey, why not? Again, I didn't ask myself why not, but I'm like, I kind of run with a more of a rebel attitude. And you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna do it. And so I called up the guys in the band and I said, hey, why not do winter jam series? Let's do outdoor concerts in community. And people, there were people,
which was an awesome adjustment, by the way. For you guys to have the creativity to do that, especially like you said, because we're on the receiving end of a lot of that stuff where we don't get the opportunities for folks like you guys. So, sure, balls out of the court on this one. It was perfect for us.
For me, it was, we played a tree lighting ceremony in Idaho, of all states, a couple of years ago, and we were blown away. They put heaters on the stage. Everybody in the audience was bundled up around the ice rink, and it worked. And I'm like, well, why can't we do this here now during COVID? We'll be outside, everybody's safe. And so we put a social media post out, and a number of people dropped the Nickel Home name. And then, of course, my college roommate's brother is the one that called me and said, hey, you need to call these guys. And I did.
Yeah.
And when I called you, the difference between you and 20 other people that I talked to is that from the get-go, you were like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. And I think it's that why not attitude. I love that. I love that philosophy.
Appreciate it.
No, I love that, because I've talked to a number of people in the community about you, and we've heard stories of you going to the school and picking up trash in the yard. We've heard stories about you in this remodeling project, being hands-on with it, not just being the CEO of it, but being hands-on in that. And you had no trouble. I don't want to say you had no trouble, but you've developed relationships in that community that has made your fundraising easier. And that attitude, man, I love that. That is
absolutely. Well, and it's something that, I wish a lot of more small towns understood, that, there is still a sense of togetherness, and, there are these ways to be involved with your neighbors still, and to get to know them, and, to ask what they need for help, even if you want nothing in return, just because someday down the line, you're going to need a favor from them. Yeah. And, you brought it up. Shoot, we got bored at the beginning of COVID last year, and a couple of us staff members went out and just started trimming people's bushes in town, and it's stuff like that where you want other people to feel the pride that you have in their community too. And, back at the beginning, when I first started, my first 2-3 weeks, I painted 4 or 5 different resident rooms just by myself after hours, just because, they needed it. And, thankfully now we have enough budget, and we're running the right way that, we have that cash flow to be able to pay somebody to come in and help us get it done professionally. Sure. But it's, there's no job too small for anybody either. And, a lot of people who are in my position, I just would always stress that you should always be looking for the small stuff, whether it's going in and helping an aide do rounds, and literally sometimes you're wiping crap up and vomit, etc. And, other times you're just a shoulder for somebody to talk to. And, the engagement aspect, you can really make people in rural Kansas believe, in rural areas believe, just if you're willing to sacrifice yourself.
Sure. How did you, how much learning experience do you have to get in this process? Did you have, obviously you've learned people along the way.
So thankfully I had an awesome mentor, Larry Blocklinger. He'd ran Sunset Home over in Concordia for about 13, 14 years. And then one of my best friends in town here is Francis Tatro, who ran the Nickel Home for 12 years. And, coming in and seeing, okay, hey, I've had 5 people in my job in the last 5 years. So my goal is to make it to year 2. Whatever I got to do, just make it to year 2. When you make it to year 2, you make it to year 3, and you just keep going. And, I've got some great friends, and Larry and Francis, who I rely on, a couple other peers in the industry. But, when you come in, it's a pretty grueling process. You have 6 months of temporary licensee time where you spend, a very good amount of hours in each specific department of your nursing home. And, it's how I know certain days, if the lunch menu looks crazy, go back and help the cook with dishes, and stuff like that, you wouldn't necessarily be told in a how-to manual. And then from there you take a state and national certification board. I think the pass rate 2 years ago when I took it was 36%. Of people who take it, passing it on their first try. And so, it was a lot of people who were willing to let me learn from them. A lot of people who I like to call experts. Every one of my department heads should be an expert in their respective field. And whatever I can do to make sure that my experts have experts and can lean on the expert opinions of others, that's big for us, because no one knows everything, but during a lot of the training and stuff like that, you just reach out, you get to learn what's needed. My first 4 or 5 months here, we also had quite a few state visits for compliance and stuff, and just checking up on old problems that I'd inherited. And thankfully, we built up a good rapport and relationship where now they've been in twice in the past 2 years, which is pretty normal. So, it's there's a lot of different, like you said, there's a lot of different entities and a lot of different people who we can't do it without. I know, our local HAPE vendor, and, our construction foreman who's been in here for almost a year now, just running stuff on their end. But it's exciting when you have a lot of experts.
Oh, good. That's awesome. When you came in, and did you immediately have visions of what you wanted to do?
Oh yeah. We had a lot different looking facility than we do today. I think the biggest thing for me was to try to create the home-like environment. I wouldn't want to pay money to live in a place that I wouldn't gladly call home. And now to be able to show, at first it was hard because it's hard to showcase that without big money in your pockets. And so we really focused hard on showing, hey, we have better care. We care about our people better. And then now, it's focused in towards, okay, we do finally have some of these amenities that make it a cute little gem out here in Glasgow. And, it's worth a little bit of attention. It's worth a second look, but I definitely knew, we've done some creative stuff where I've got some siding and places on the interior portions of the building to make it look like the exterior of a building. And, we're trying these things with doors where we want to have front porches over the doors, and so that, it's a resident room, and they shouldn't all look the same, because,
Sure.
Not every house looks the same. Some
Right.
should have tin roofs, some should have trusses, etc. And so there's always a Pinterest board of ideas in your head, of, man, okay, I really want to do that. And, even at the beginning, we'd go to places all the time, my staff and I, and, Meadowlark Hills, one of the best nursing homes in the state, is over in Manhattan. And we went through there 3-4 times my first couple months, just so I could show the staff and say, okay, this is not for you to feel bad about what we have to offer.
Right.
This is for you to go in and say, I'm going to steal one thing from this awesome place and I'm going to bring it back to ours and make it ours. And so like the first time, we went in, one of my staff members was like, oh, they have a bar for residents and it's got a drink special. We should do a monthly drink special. So we do that now, and it's just those little things where you can go and look at people all across the industry with their good ideas and say, man, I'm going to take a little bit of this. I'm going to take a little bit of that. And pretty soon you have everything that you idealize as home-like and setting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Steal one thing. Absolutely. I love that.
Always.
What kind of resistance did you get? And when you hear the word no, how do you handle that?
We had some resistance and changes of thinking, but a lot of the times people just, I'd say good workers are attracted to good workers the same as bad workers are attracted to leaving good workers, and a lot of turnover happened just naturally to separate out, to where we are now even. It always continues to happen as you grow and get better. You see improvements in different areas, but I'd say, even a good amount of the people who did come through and turn over still approach the idea of this job as something different than what they've approached other jobs. And that's all I can ask for, and when people say no, I'm always one to respect it, just definitely depending on who it's coming from. But I am also one to try to find, okay, well, maybe there's still a creative way of getting that done, and I've been told no on, one of the first things I wanted to do was move around our public restroom in our salon, and I got told no on it, and I rethought it, and now it's played out for the better. So, there's times where your experts tell you no, and you just, take it with a grain of salt. And if it's something worth fighting for, you might fight for it a little bit more. But if not, okay, hey, then how could I make this a yes for that person? How could I change their mindset and maybe let them see something that I was thinking, or maybe they'll consider it from a different viewpoint if I present more information. So
sure. Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Four books. If you recommended 4 books for people to read that are looking for that successful mindset, what would you?
Yes. So I've got a couple here. The ones that I really liked was 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but there's a whole series by Patrick Leoncini. He's a great writer, does a whole bunch of different ones there. I think that he does a great job of storytelling. So, in the books, you might not relate to the main character, but you're going to find a character in the room of the business sense that you'll relate to. Right. Another one that I've got is The Elements of Style. Okay. It talks a lot about merging communication strategies. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very important thing, is understanding different types of communication. Of course, the time old tale of how to win friends, and that's a great book in itself. Right. But those are some of my big reads. Definitely when I started, I had the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and we all read it, and talked about it on a little retreat, and
sure.
Try to do that from time to time. It's a little crazier during the pandemic, but
right.
Wholeheartedly, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, Carter, again, I just, you stood out to me from the get-go in our initial.
Thanks, Jake.
You were extremely hands-on. A lot of times when we're talking with an administrator about doing some of these outdoor concerts, they'll delegate them right away, to a DON or to an activities director. And you did that, but you also stayed very, very active in that process, and made things extremely easy for us. And again,
thanks, man.
The word was success, and it was successful. You had a great event for your community and your residents. And
and so many in our community echoed that. So many people appreciated you guys coming out, man. I mean, it was so well received here.
It just was a model that stood out. So thank you for your time, man. I really, really appreciate it. And you've given us a lot of insight. I knew you had some stuff in that brain that was,
thanks, Jake,
that was making an impact in your community. So thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it, Carter.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, bye.
Baby, I'm